Hey guys, tonight we wander far back before pillows, before mattresses, before sheep were even available to count. You're not in a cozy bedroom. You're crouched inside a damp, smoky cave. Outside, the wind howls through a pine forest, and inside, a mammoth bone fire crackles low. Sparks spit, shadows dance. The stench of unwashed hunters and half-cooked meat clings to everything. Welcome to your new bedtime. You curl into a fetal position on a bed of animal hides, each one still vaguely smelling of what it once was. Someone near you, maybe your cousin or your cousin's cousin, snores like a boulder rolling down a hill. Another person mutters in their sleep about hyenas. You blink at the low ceiling traced in charcoal doodles of bulls and hands and unblinking eyes. Are they art or warning signs? You hope it's not the latter. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and time in the comments. I love seeing where you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come quickly. Not when the fire's flickering blue, a bad omen, and the cave walls creak like they're breathing. One of the elders starts humming a low lullaby. It's not tuneful. It's more like a rumble that rattles in your bones. You join in even though you don't know the words. No one really does. It's more about rhythm than meaning. A drumming chant to tell the night you're not afraid. And maybe you're not. After all, your ancestors have done this for thousands of years. They've survived saber-toothed cats and surprise blizzards. What's a little sleeplessness compared to that? You try adjusting your sleeping position, but your pillow is a chunk of bark you mistook for fur. You flip it over and oops, there's a beetle, not a small one. He scuttles off with the sleepy dignity of someone who lives here and pays rent. You respect that. Historians still argue whether early humans had formal sleep rituals or just collapsed from exhaustion. But there's growing evidence that even cavemen weren't entirely casual about bedtime. Some cave sites show people intentionally gathering softer moss or layering hides. Others suggest sleeping areas were arranged deliberately with children placed between adults, not just for warmth, but for safety. You shuffle closer to the center of the group. There's comfort in the pile, in the snoring, shifting, elbowing mass of your clan. Some theories suggest this is where the modern preference for blankets and body pillows comes from your brain once the feeling of others around. It's programmed to find safety in the squeeze, and there is a ritual in a way. Before sleep, the elder tells a story. It's long, winding, and oddly specific about a leopard who stole the moon and a girl who climbed the sky to get it back. You've heard it before, but it changes each time. Everyone listens with drooping eyelids, waiting for the moment when the story slows quiets and tapers into silence. It's like oral melatonin. Then it's your turn to watch the fire. Every night, someone stays awake for a while, not just to keep the flames alive, but to keep the dark at bay. The dark is alive, you believe, not metaphorically. It's literally crawling with eyes and claws and things that don't like the smell of cooked meat. So you take your stick and poke the coals like you were taught. Sleep will come soon, eventually. When it does, it's not long or uninterrupted. Paleolithic sleep they think was polyphasic short chunks rather than a full 8 hours. You doze off, dream briefly of rivers and running deer, then wake to someone farting loudly and someone else kicking you in the ribs. Still, your body rests, your brain cycles, and even here, wrapped in skins and dirt and uncertain dreams, you're part of something ancient and shared. You dream not just for yourself, but for the tribe. Sometimes elders claim dreams are messages from the cave itself, or from ancestors, or from the wind. They'll ask you about it in the morning, whether you remember or not. Best to have something ready. Say you saw a fish with antlers. They'll nod like that means something. The fire dies down. The elder who told the story snores, now mouth open, hands folded over his belly. A baby stirs. You reach over and pull a scrap of hide over it. It smells like mammoth fat. Everything does. You're getting used to it. Outside, the wind fades. Inside, the cave breathes in sync, and you finally gently sleep. You wake to the scratch of reeds brushing against linen and the low murmur of a priest whispering words you don't quite understand. The cave is gone. Now you're in ancient Egypt. Specifically, you're lying in a modest sand-colored chamber just steps from the Nile, and bedtime is about to get very ceremonial. You sit up on your woven mat, half covered in a linen sheet, so light it practically floats. Someone has left a small bundle of herbs at your feet, blue lotus frankincense, and a pinch of crushed myrrh. You know what that means. It's time for the sleep scrolls. In ancient Egypt, sleep wasn't just rest. It was preparation. You weren't simply closing your eyes. You were stepping into the realm of dreams, where gods whispered secrets and the dead left cryptic voicemails. You light a lamp. The oil sputters, casting gold light onto the papyrus scroll beside your bed. It's a spell, not the dramatic kind with lightning and fireballs, more like a poetic suggestion, a bedtime playlist, ancient edition. The words read, "O nut, stretch thy sky arms above me, and cradle me as a child in darkness, that I may dream without interruption and rise with Ra untouched." Not bad for a sleep mantra written 3,000 years ago. Historians still argue whether most Egyptians actually recited these incantations at bedtime, or if this was just a priestly luxury. But scrolls like these have been found in tombs and homes alike, tucked into headrests and sleep shrines. That's right, some people had full-on altars for sleep. You think your memory foam is high maintenance. Tonight, you go full ritual. You dab a bit of sacred oil behind your ears. It smells like burnt cinnamon and mystery. You lie down on your stone headrest, yes, stone, comfortable as hugging a brick, and face the east. Why east? Because that's where Ra, the sun god, rises, and you'd very much like him to notice you're still breathing when he returns. There's a strange confidence in this sleep. Egyptians didn't fear the dark in the same way Paleolithic cave dwellers did. They saw the night as a sacred crossing, a bridge to other worlds, a rehearsal for death, sure, but also a rehearsal for rebirth. The bed you're lying on, in fact, might literally be shaped like a sarcophagus, not out of morbidity, just aesthetic consistency. Sleep and death were close cousins here, one temporary, one permanent, both involved lying very still and hoping someone didn't step on your face. Some nights a temple priest might wander in and check on you, not to make sure you're tucked in, but to interpret your dream state. If you twitch, it could mean something. If you mumble, even more so. There's a whole dream translation guide carved into temple walls. See a crocodile, expect money. See a broken jar, expect arguments. See your teeth fall out. Congratulations, you're in a universal anxiety loop that even the ancients shared. Quirky tidbit crocodile dung wasn't just used in ancient sunscreen or medicine, it also had a place in sleep rituals. Some spells involved smearing it on doorways or bedposts to keep away spirits. Imagine trying to sleep while marinating in that aroma. Lavender oil never looked so good. You breathe slowly now, in through your nose, out through pursed lips, just as the physicians recommended. Sleep was tied to health after all. If your humors weren't balanced, your dreams could get rowdy. Too much heat. You might dream of fire. Too much cold. You might wake up convinced your soul wandered off without you. You close your eyes and murmur one last line to yourself. As the stars travel, so shall I in silence on sacred wings of night. It's not a lullaby, but it works. You drift off wrapped in linen, hovering somewhere between this world and the duat, the Egyptian afterlife. In your dream, you walk barefoot on obsidian tiles. A falcon watches from a gold perch. Behind you, the Nile flows uphill. You're not scared, you're curious. Tomorrow, a temple scribe might ask about this dream. You'll tell them the truth, or at least the version that earns you an extra fig at breakfast. You shift in your sleep and hear the soft rattle of a charm bracelet beside your mat. Not jewelry, more like ancient night protection. A tiny amulet, shaped like a scarab beetle, lies tucked beneath your headrest. It's carved with a spell that translates roughly to "Don't bother me, I'm sleeping." It's a sentiment that transcends time. Somewhere outside, a hippo bellows. Somewhere closer, someone coughs in their sleep and mutters about wheat. You stay still. You sleep like an Egyptian, with purpose, with ritual, and just a hint of dread. You wake in the dark, blinking at flickering shadows that aren't yours. The air smells sharp like smoke and something vaguely burnt. Welcome to your bedroom in ancient Thebes sometime in the New Kingdom. And yes, that strange paste on your chest is what you think it is, crocodile dung, mixed with honey. For protection, obviously. The priest assured you last night that this special salve would keep away sleep demons, the kind that slither in through your dreams and sit on your chest. The texture is gritty. The smell is apocalyptic. But if it keeps the nightmares away, maybe it's worth it. Besides, honey is antibacterial, right? You roll onto your side and nearly knock over a small clay lamp perched on a narrow shelf beside your mat. The lamp burns with sacred oil infused with crushed blue lotus petals and myrrh. The flame dances low, giving the room a pulsing amber glow, like you're sleeping in a temple or the world's most fire-prone apothecary. These late-night rituals aren't just superstition. In ancient Egyptian households, bedtime was a battleground. It wasn't just about falling asleep. It was about surviving the night spiritually intact. Dreams were not private. They were messages, omens, tests from the gods. And the gods, they didn't send emails. They sent crocodile dung and incense instructions. You whisper the words the priest taught you again, not out of faith necessarily, but out of caution. O night, O keeper of breath, turn your face from me and blink. You're not sure what that means. Maybe the night has eyes. Maybe it blinks when it's not watching. You don't want to know. Historians still argue whether ordinary citizens truly followed these sleep rituals or if these practices were reserved for the elite and the spiritually devout. But considering how much we've found charms, amulets, spells etched onto household objects, it's fair to say most people hedge their bets. After all, what's the harm in a little protective dung if it means waking up with your soul still in your body? You pull the sheet tighter, not that it helps. The breeze through your reed window is hot and dry, like someone exhaling on you after chewing on sand. You hear a dog bark somewhere down the road, or maybe a jackal. Hard to tell. Tonight there's an added layer of protection, a small clay figure at the foot of your mat. It's a miniature Bez, the dwarf god of sleep and protection. He's got lion ears, a pot belly, and a terrifying grimace. Basically, a monster to scare away other monsters. You feel better already. You try to relax. You really do. But it's hard when you're lying in a room full of weird smells and spirit traps and the distinct sound of someone whispering in the next courtyard. Not talking, whispering. Just enough to make your skin feel tight. Still, you know this is normal. Sleep here is always a negotiation between rest and awareness, between this world and the next, between you and whatever's lurking beyond the curtain of night. You close your eyes again, and this time you dream. You're walking through a golden field, but the wheat whispers your name. You're holding a jar of oil, but it melts into dust. A cat with the face of your grandmother stares at you from a pedestal and says, "Don't forget the lamp." You wake with a start. The lamp is sputtering. You sit up fast and spill it. Flame kisses the floor, but fizzles out before panic sets in. You smear more of the salve on your wrists, because obviously that helps. Sleep here isn't cozy. It's complicated, but also weirdly beautiful. Quirky detail. Some households used sleep incantations that referenced moon phases and planetary alignments. You weren't supposed to fall asleep under certain stars unless you'd eaten the right herbs, bathed at the right hour, and said the right prayers. It's like astrology, with consequences. And still you try again. This time, you wrap yourself tighter, whisper a final line to Bess, and exhale through your nose like a priest taught you. The room softens, the night lightens, and sleep finds you at last, not because you're ready, but because you've earned it. You wake to the smell of damp clay and dust, the soft rustle of reeds outside your window, and something cold pressing into your cheek. It's a brick. Congratulations, you've just dozed off on a Sumerian pillow. You blink. The room around you is small, but neat. Mud brick walls, a low table with a half-finished bowl of barley mash, and a clay tablet perched beside your bed like it's waiting for your next idea. Because here in the cradle of civilization, where writing was born, dreams are taken very seriously. You sit up slowly, spine cracking like the edge of a drying tablet, and stare at the ceiling. It's painted with a faded spiral of stars, and just beside your feet is a small jar of sheep fat and crushed dates. Fuel for the bedside oil lamp, or possibly a midnight snack, hard to say. Sumerians multitasked. But you've got more pressing matters. Your dream last night, it wasn't ordinary. You remember it vividly, a winged lion flying backward through a storm while chanting your name in a dialect you've never heard. That's a message, and you know exactly what to do. You grab your stylus and start carving the dream into clay. Yes, really. Sumerians believed dreams came straight from the gods, or at the very least, from the underworld postal service. If you dreamt of something strange, symbolic, or unsettling, it was your duty to write it down, not for yourself, but for the local sleep oracle to interpret. Historians still debate how widespread this practice was. Were only elites documenting their sleep? Or did every fish seller and barley farmer keep a dream diary? But clay tablets have been found in private homes, not just temples, etched with notes, like I saw a white ox walk into my tent. Trouble, or dreamt of 7 broken pots. Is my wife upset? You gather your things and shuffle toward the ziggurat at dawn. There at the top of the terraced temple lives the interpreter, a man with ink-stained robes and a faint smell of goat who makes a living decoding sleep. You hand over your tablet. He squints, nods slowly, says flying backward, that's the god Enlil. The storm means warning. The chanting is unclear, but avoid fish today. Noted. You walk home with a sense of calm, not because you avoided some metaphysical danger, but because the ritual recording your dream, offering it up, hearing the verdict helps. Sleep here isn't an escape. It's a conversation with yourself, with your ancestors, with something bigger. You lie down that night and prepare again. There's a small ritual. You anoint your temples with scented oil, mostly sesame chew, on a bit of sweet reed to relax your jaw and recite a short chant under your breath. It goes, "As the gods descend from the stars, let my spirit rise to meet them in dreams that flow like the river Tigris." There's no proof it works, but after 3 lines of poetry and a warm mat under your back, your body gets the hint. You're asleep in moments. This time, you dream of a field full of black sheep that turn into birds. You chase one, but it speaks in your mother's voice and says, "Rest." The wheel turns slowly. You wake feeling strange, but also comforted. Quirky side note. Some Sumerian dream interpreters kept dream calendars where they'd mark which dreams were common during which lunar phase. Dreamt of drowning during the waning moon. Apparently a good sign. Dreamt of cows with extra legs during a full moon. Cancel all travel plans immediately. And yes, some of these interpretations were baked into public rituals. People would gather to act out the dreams of the king or high priest, hoping that reenacting the dream might change its outcome. That's right, community theater as nightmare prevention. You don't need that tonight. You just need the breeze through the reeds, the hum of distant music drifting in from the temple, and the feel of cool clay beneath your fingertips. You dream again before you even know you've closed your eyes. You wake up under a tree, not in your bed, not on a mat, not even indoors, just flat on your back, cradled by dirt, dappled in sunlight, and vaguely aware that someone is playing a flute nearby. Welcome to ancient Greece, where sleep isn't something you retreat into, it's something you perform. You stretch, feeling vines brush your ankles. Olive branches shift overhead in a lazy breeze. Bees buzz somewhere off to the left. A goat snorts. Somewhere far away, philosophers are arguing loudly about whether the soul leaves the body during sleep or simply turns inward for a snack. You're not part of that argument today. You're training for the Sleep Olympics. Okay, not literally, but it might as well be. In classical Greece, rest was serious business, especially for the wealthy, the wise, or the downright eccentric. Sleep was seen as a gift from the gods Hello Hypnos, but also as a fine art, and if you wanted to maintain your mental and physical edge, you had to do it right. which is why you lucky Athenian are reclining outdoors in a shaded grove, eyes half closed, breathing like a stoic in meditation class. Your body is trained to nap with grace, not sloppily like a tired goat herder on a rock. No, your naps are sculpted, composed, curated. You lie in the exact direction of the sun's setting arc. Your tunic is just loosely draped enough for airflow, and beside you a small dish of thyme and lavender placed to enhance olfactory tranquility. That's the real thing, not just a spa trend. You are what some sources call a merimnai, a sleeper of contemplation. You rest not because you're tired, but because rest is part of your rhythm. You nap like a warrior rests their sword, with intention, quirky tidbit. In some Athenian schools, children were trained in controlled drowsing, a kind of semi-meditative state where they would lie still and visualize philosophical concepts until either wisdom or unconsciousness occurred, which sounds a lot like falling asleep in algebra class, just rebranded. Today you're visiting the temple of Asclepius, the god of healing, not for an illness but for a ritual called incubation. Here's how it works. You arrive fast, a little purify yourself with water, and sleep overnight in the temple's inner chamber, hoping for a dream that offers healing or guidance. Some say the dreams are divine, others say it's just the incense and the hunger talking. Historians still argue whether the outcomes were spiritual placebo or a really well-timed nap. But the fact remains, people lined up for this for centuries. You doze on a polished stone bench. The marble is cold, but your thin cloak takes the edge off. You close your eyes. Somewhere above you, pigeons flutter in the rafters. The air smells like oil and old prayers. You think you hear a whisper, but maybe it's just your own thoughts wrapping around you like vines. When you wake, you remember a dream, a figure cloaked in mist handing you a pomegranate and saying rest is the cure for all misjudgments. You're not entirely sure what that means, but you nod solemnly and walk out of the temple like you've just learned something deep. It's okay. No one really questions the content. It's the act of sleeping here that matters. You walk back through the colonnade, past a man snoring upright in a bronze chair. His friends are debating ethics while casually braiding his hair. This is normal. And at night, when you return to your home in Athens, your sleep ritual continues. You oil your arms and legs with almond oil, dust your bedding with crushed sage, and recite a short verse from Homer. Not the battle bits, the dreamy lines, the ones about twilight and returning ships. You lie on your side eyes on the flickering flame of the oil lamp and murmur. Even Odysseus slept, though storms chased him. So I too may drift. Then you wait. Not anxiously, just gently, as if sleep is a friend who's always a little late, but always arrives. And it does. One final note. Greek societies would love to debate the purpose of dreams. Were they messages from gods, echoes of waking thoughts, pure nonsense? Even Aristotle couldn't decide. But that didn't stop anyone from acting like their weird dream about talking birds meant something. And maybe it did. You sleep now under stars that don't judge in a world that sees sleep not as surrender, but as wisdom. You stir from your nap to the rhythmic splash of water echoing through marble halls. The air is thick with heat and the faint scent of wine garlic and ambition. You've just woken up in ancient Rome, where sleep isn't private and snoring is practically a competitive sport. You're reclined on a narrow wooden couch draped in a tunic that's seen better days. The walls around you are painted with vines and mythological scenes, Bacchus doing something inappropriate with a jug, probably. Outside, the streets of Rome throb with life wheels grinding over cobblestones, vendors yelling about figs, and someone in the distance making a very convincing case for their cousin's political future. But inside, it's nap time. Romans take their meridiatio seriously, a midday siesta that would make a modern office worker weep with envy. You've eaten too much garum-soaked fish, washed it down with diluted wine, and now you're horizontal grateful for the silence, sort of. Your host Gaius is lying 2 couches over and snoring like an erupting volcano, loud, erratic, with the occasional honk that sounds suspiciously like Latin profanity. You glance at him. No shame. In fact, among upper-class Romans, a loud snore was a badge of health and masculinity. One senator even wrote a short poem about his noble nasal thunder. You wish he hadn't. Quirky tidbit, some elite Romans hired professional sleep servants whose entire job was to gently fan their master, adjust the cushions, and if needed, match their snoring rhythm to make it more harmonious. It's like a sleep duet, only deeply unsettling. You try to drift off again, despite the sonic boom beside you, and yet somehow you do. You dream you're on a chariot made of clouds racing through the forum while philosophers pelt you with grapes. When you wake, your pillow has been replaced with a small bust of Emperor Augustus. You make eye contact with the statue, briefly question your life choices, and then sit up to resume the day. But sleep isn't over, because tonight is a full Roman sleep experience. You'll dine late in a triclinium full of overeager poets and slightly drunk senators. You'll recline again, not to sleep, but to eat, and once your stomach has accepted its tragic fate, you'll stumble back to your domus and begin your real sleep ritual. First the bath, always the bath. Not for cleanliness, though it helps, but because hot water followed by cold water is the Roman prescription for knocking out your nerves. You soak until you prune, then wrapped in a toga that smells like expensive soap and marble dust, you collapse onto your bed. Roman beds are strange by modern standards. No mattresses in the plush sense. They're more like tight ropes covered in linen and stuffed with straw or feathers if you're lucky. If you're not, you get hay and regret. You lie down. A servant extinguishes the oil lamp with a whispery fuff. The house groans in the wind. You murmur a quick prayer to Somnus, the Roman god of sleep, and close your eyes. Historians still argue whether Romans slept in segmented phases, like medieval Europeans did later, first sleep midnight, waking second sleep. There's evidence for both patterns, and a lot depends on status workload and wine intake. But for the wealthy, sleep came late and often in pieces. The middle of the night might involve poetry, or a snack, or whispering philosophy to the ceiling while debating whether to conquer Gaul or just retire. You wake around midnight, not to terror, not to noise, but to a gentle harp being plucked by someone in the atrium. Apparently Gaius hired a midnight musician for ambiance. He claims it helps with digestion. You believe it just helps him feel important. Still, the sound is nice. You pad barefoot across cold tile to the courtyard stretch under the stars and sip a cup of watered honey wine. Then back to bed. You dream of building a temple out of grapes. You don't question it. Because in Rome, everything is a statement, even sleep. You wake with a stiff neck and a sudden awareness that your pillow is aggressively judgmental. Not metaphorically, physically. It's a polished block of jade, smooth chilled, and about as comfortable as sleeping on a smug ice cube. Welcome to ancient China. The room is still. A paper lantern glows faintly above your head, casting a warm orange light across lacquered wood and painted silk panels. Outside, a night breeze stirs the bamboo. Inside, your vertebrae whisper insults. The jade pillow, once prized for its supposed health benefits and spirit-cooling properties, feels more like a subtle punishment from a very polite society. You shift slightly, trying to find a soft corner on your glorified headstone. No luck. Still, it's not all bad. The air smells faintly of camellia blossoms. Your bedding, though thin, is silk, woven so tightly it feels like cool water on your skin. And next to your mat lies a scroll filled with calligraphy, each character written with sleepy elegance. It's not a poem. It's a sleep manual. Yes, a manual for sleep. You trace your fingers across the opening lines, something about aligning the spirit with the breath and the breath with the stars. You try not to roll your eyes, mostly because your neck hurts too much. In ancient Chinese philosophy, sleep wasn't just a biological need. It was a spiritual exercise. The goal wasn't just rest, it was restoration. Yin and yang, blood and qi, shadow, and dream, everything had to balance. Historians still argue whether these beliefs shaped actual daily practices, or if they were mostly confined to the educated and the elite. But many households, regardless of class, seem to adopt at least some of the theory: careful room orientation, head-facing north bed materials chosen for elemental harmony, and of course those lovely unyielding jade pillows. You sit up slowly and reach for the small teapot by your bedside. Inside is a concoction of sour jujube seeds, chrysanthemum petals, and something your uncle swears is deer brain powder. It's supposed to quiet the liver fire and calm your dreams. It mostly tastes like damp bark. You drink it anyway. Nearby, a painted fan hangs on the wall depicting the god Meng Po, who guards the bridge of forgetfulness. According to legend, she serves soup to souls before reincarnation soup that erases all memory of past lives. A good reminder, you suppose, not to take your current sleep too seriously. In the cosmic view, you'll get another shot. Still, you'd like this one to count. You lie down again, head cradled on what might as well be a ceremonial plate, and begin your breathing ritual. Inhale 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, exhale slowly through the mouth. Again, until your thoughts start to drift, not fast, but like mist over a pond. Quirky tidbit. Some Chinese texts describe dream control as a trainable skill, not unlike martial arts. One famous scholar claimed he could enter a dream, identify it as such, and visit specific locations by altering his body temperature before bed. You try to change your temperature now. Nothing happens except a sneeze. Still, you keep practicing. You drift. You imagine a garden, a stone path, a soft wind through plum blossoms. You walk until you see a doorway that wasn't there before. Inside, a woman made of ink offers you a cup of moonlight. You wake with a start. It's still night. Your teacup is empty. You stare at the jade pillow, and you think maybe, just maybe, it worked. You wake to the sound of your own breath. Inhale, hold, exhale, pause. You are lying on a straw mat in a quiet chamber, lit only by the rising sun pressing faint lines of gold through a bamboo screen. Your body is sore in the way it always is after a long session of sitting perfectly still. You don't reach for anything. You don't move yet. First, you scan. How's your jaw loose? Shoulders drooped. Spine straight as a bamboo shoot. Good. Very good. You're in ancient India, and tonight's sleep was the final part of your yogic sleep drill. Not sleep as in collapse and snore. Sleep as in yoga nidra sleep, with a thread of consciousness trailing through the dream like a silk ribbon. Sleep that's not quite sleep, not quite waking. Somewhere in between. You didn't drift into it. You practiced your way there. Last night you followed the routine perfectly. You lit incense, placed a small image of Vishnu at your feet, lay flat on your back, and began the rotation of awareness. Scalp, forehead, left eye, right ear, tongue, throat, shoulder, fingers, chest, knees, toes, and around again. It took 20 minutes to feel like your body had melted into the floor. They say if you do this right, you'll fall asleep without ever losing awareness. That didn't exactly happen. Somewhere between left foot and spleen, your thoughts wandered to mangoes. Then they wandered to a camel you met once. Then you were definitely asleep. Still you feel lighter, like you borrowed your own body and now it's returned slightly better aligned. Historians still argue whether ancient yogic sleep rituals were common practice or reserved for monk sages and very dedicated insomniacs. But texts like the Upanishads and early yogic manuals make clear that sleep wasn't just downtime, it was a technique. And not mastering it was, well, a little embarrassing. You rise now and perform your gentle morning stretch. Nothing flashy. Arms up, forward fold. A breath that starts in the belly and ends somewhere near the sun. You feel gratitude. You also feel your back crack. There's no bed in your chamber. Just the mat, the incense burner, and a low dish where you'd left a few drops of ghee. Symbolic offering to the divine, and frankly decent moisturizer. Last night's routine also included pranayama-controlled breathing, specifically alternate nostril breathing. You blocked your right nostril with your thumb inhaled through the left, switched to exhaled, back and forth. It made you feel like a sleepy woodwind instrument, but it worked. There's even a quirky legend that yogis could lower their heart rate so much through this practice that wild animals would curl up beside them. You didn't see any tigers in your dreams, but a squirrel did sit on your window ledge and fall asleep mid-chant. That has to count. Your teacher once said that yoga nidra is like writing poetry with your nervous system. You didn't understand it at first. Now you think you do. It's less about dreams, more about drifting inward gently like a boat slipping from its moorings. And you realize sleep here is sacred, but it's also skillful. You don't simply get tired. You prepare to rest. You bow once to the east. Your body thanks you for the jade-free pillow. You thank it back. And as you move into the day, quiet stretched, vaguely glowing, you know that when night falls again, your mat will be waiting. Your breath will return to its rhythm, and the dream will be something you enter, not something that swallows you. You open your eyes to absolute stillness, not the quiet of nature, but the deliberate cultivated silence of a space that has been cleaned, blessed, and told to hush. You're in ancient Japan, and your dreams have just passed through a room that takes sleep more seriously than some cultures take war. You rise slowly from your futon. It rests on a tightly woven tatami mat, carefully placed according to tradition, never in a cross pattern, never where the lines of mats meet in a corner. That would invite bad luck, possibly ghosts. No one wants ghost drama at bedtime. The air smells like hinoki wood and last night's incense. Outside, the wind moves through bamboo like whispered laughter. Inside, your body feels ordered, because here in this place and time, sleep is a ritual of exactness, cleanliness, and believe it or not, apology. You bow slightly toward the bed before leaving it. Not a deep bow, just a respectful nod, because in ancient Japan, some believed objects could hold spirits, including your futon, including your pillow, especially your pillow, and you weren't particularly kind to yours last night, were you? You were tired. You rolled aggressively. You drooled a little. So before the day truly begins, you kneel, fold the blanket just so, and whisper a short murmured thanks to your bedding. It's not dramatic. It's not even entirely verbal, but it's there. This practice zaitaku rei, a kind of respectful attitude toward household items, was rooted in the Shinto belief that everything has a spirit, or kami, even objects you sleep on, especially if they're made from natural materials. Historians still debate how literally people took this animistic worldview in daily life, but ritualized gratitude, even toward pillows, has deep roots in Japanese domestic life. You respect the things that serve you, especially the things that cradle your dreams. You step out onto the wooden ingawa porch and sip warm rice water. The morning is crisp. Your body hums from last night's routine, a warm bath perfumed with yuzu, a bowl of barley gruel to calm your stomach, and a final hour spent copying poetry with a brush so soft it felt like sleep training for your wrist. The poems were from Manyoshu, of course, the ancient anthology where people compared sleep to snow, to rivers, to love that slips away too soon. You remember one line: "My body lies alone, yet my heart walks with yours through the garden of sleep." You recited it 3 times before bed, not for anyone else, just to soften the edge of waking. Last night's dreams were strange. You floated over a forest of fans. A crane bowed to you and said, "Do not fold yourself too tightly." You woke up with a crease on your cheek and a vague sense of comfort. Quirky detail. In some regions, people believed placing a small charm called a makura, no soshi, a pillow book beneath your head, could influence your dreams. Not to read it, but to absorb its elegance, as if poetry could seep through your skull and organize your unconscious. You wonder if it worked. You did feel more lyrical this morning, but not all was peaceful in the night. There was a moment brief, but real, when your eyes fluttered open and the dark seemed different, as if something watched. You lit a small lamp, waved your hand to scatter any unwelcome kami, and placed a salt bowl at the foot of the bed, just in case. You're not superstitious. You're politely cautious. That's the thing about sleep here. It's not just physical. It's relational. You are in dialogue with your room, your blanket, your dreams, your pillow. Speaking of which, your pillow last night was not soft. It was filled with buckwheat hulls, crunchy, shape-shifting, surprisingly loud, but adjustable and oddly loyal. It formed around your head like it was trying to understand you. You forgive it for the stiffness. Tonight, you'll forgive it again, and tomorrow. Because in this world, where everything has spirit, even your sleep deserves respect. You wake to shouting, not angry shouting, motivational shouting, deep, guttural, chest vibrating stuff, as if someone is trying to rally an army or summon a thunder god before breakfast. And honestly, that's pretty accurate. You're in Viking country now, somewhere cold coastal and unapologetically loud. Your bed is a rough wooden plank strewn with furs nestled in the corner of a longhouse that smells like smoke sweat and recently boiled fish. The air is freezing. Your toes are numb, but the yelling is oddly reassuring. Because in the world of the Norse sleep and battle are cousins, and you never know which one you're waking up from. You rub your eyes and reach for your cloak. Someone has already stirred the fire flames crackle near a cauldron full of something brown and bubbling. Across the hall, a large man named Bjorn is yelling at his goat. The goat is unbothered. It's been through this before. You slept well, all things considered. The night began with a prayer to Odin, or maybe to Frigg, depending on which elder you believed. You whispered your hopes into the fire pit, then tucked a carved rune under your bedding. Protection against Draugr restless spirits known to haunt dreams and sometimes bodies. Historians still argue how deeply the Vikings spiritualized their sleep. We know they feared certain dreams. We know they believed dreams could predict death, war, or weather. And we know they slept light, ready to leap into combat, or onto a ship, or into Valhalla if the moment demanded it. Which is why, before bed, you lined your boots up beside your sleeping spot. Not for neatness, for speed. You stretch now, bones popping like the ice outside. You slept beneath bare fur, warmed by your own breath and the low heat of the communal fire. Next to you, someone muttered in their sleep all night, something about burning sails and gold beneath the tree. Everyone dreams of treasure here, or storms. You look down at your palm. Last night, the wise woman traced runes onto it in ash, then pressed her fingers to your forehead and whispered, "Sleep with your eyes closed, but your soul awake." You wanted to ask what that meant, but she had already walked away, muttering about ravens. Quirky tidbit Viking warriors sometimes swore oaths before sleep, declaring their intent to dream of battle so they could meet dead friends in the afterlife. If they died in their sleep, they wanted their final thoughts to be worthy. You wonder what your dreams were last night. You vaguely remember rowing a ship made of bones while a fox insulted your rowing form. Close enough. You throw a ladle of hot water on your face from the basin. It stings. It wakes you fully. Someone hands you a bowl of porridge. It's mostly oats. You nod in thanks. Words are few in the morning. Grunts suffice. But tonight it'll begin again. You'll wind down after the evening feast, meat-ale tales of who caught the biggest fish or had the worst near-death experience. Then just before crawling back onto your bed plank, you'll whisper into the fire again. You'll say the names of your ancestors, just in case they're listening. You'll tighten your cloak, adjust the rune beneath your furs, and lie down facing the door. Always the door, just in case. Sleep comes slowly in this land. It's cautious, watchful, but when it comes, it's deep, like a fjord, like the ocean floor, like the calm between two battles. And tonight, in your dreams, the goat talks back. You wake in darkness. Not just the absence of lamps kind, but the thick velvet dark of a world waiting for sunrise with bated breath. You don't light a fire. You don't even breathe too loudly, because tonight your sleep is a ritual of survival. You're in the heart of the Aztec Empire, and the stars above Tenochtitlan feel impossibly far away. Somewhere in the city, drums beat in slow, steady rhythm, boom, 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 echoing through the stone streets like a heartbeat. You lie on a woven mat in a small chamber walls, painted with red and black glyphs. Beside you, a burning copal resin stick curls white smoke into the air, meant to purify your dreams. You haven't just gone to bed. You've performed a rite, and not for luxury. Here, sleep is sacred, structured, and slightly terrifying, because in this world, the gods can take offense at anything, including the way you rest. Your evening began with a light meal, maize cakes, and cacao, but not too much. Overindulgence could offend your body spirits, and you'd wake with nightmares. Then you offered a prayer to Xolotl, the twin of Quetzalcoatl, and the deity who guides souls safely through darkness. But most importantly, you avoided sleeping at certain times. According to the Tonopahwali, the sacred calendar, some nights were simply bad, especially ones governed by days like Xipaktli, the crocodile, or Miquistli death. On those nights, people might sleep facing a different direction or avoid dreaming altogether through chanting herbs or a sleep partner's gentle nudging every time you drift too deep. Historians still debate how widespread these dream precautions were, whether the average Aztec farmer truly tracked the heavens nightly, or whether such details were reserved for priests and scribes. But many agree that belief in sleep as a channel between this world and others was common. You know it instinctively because you feel it. Before falling asleep, you lay flat on your back arms, crossed over your chest, mimicking the funerary pose of warriors. Not because you expect to die, but because that position is said to protect your soul from leaving the body too freely. You don't want it wandering off without supervision. The room is silent but alive. You close your eyes, and then you dream. You're in a jungle clearing surrounded by obsidian trees. A hummingbird lands on your finger and turns into a jaguar. The moon splits open like a fruit, and your grandmother steps out shaking her head and saying, "Don't forget the offering." You wake with your heart racing and a fine sheen of sweat on your brow. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the censer. The coals are still glowing. Good. That means your dream wasn't invaded by malevolent forces, or at least not successfully. Beside you, someone else stirs. Your cousin, maybe. He mutters something about feathers and fire, then rolls over. You reach for the small pouch of powdered ololiuqui, a plant known to bring clarity in dreams. You pinch a bit between your fingers and scatter it onto the floor beside your mat, a gesture of grounding, of calling your spirit back into your body. Quirky detail Aztec sleep customs often included dream recall ceremonies. In the morning, you'd report your dreams to an elder who might assign tasks based on what you saw. Dreamt of falling, expect a warning. Dreamt of blood, expect a decision. Dreamt of corn growing from your arms. Get ready for a big day at the Chinampa fields. You lie back down, chest still thudding. The drums continue outside, steady and slow. Boom, boom. You breathe with them. And soon your body listens. You sleep again, not peacefully, not deeply, but correctly, which here is what matters. You wake slick with sweat lungs full of steam and skin tingling as if it remembers fire. You're not in a bed. You're in a temazcal, a stone sweat lodge, deep in the heart of the Maya world, and the line between sleep trance and hallucination is thinner than the steam swirling around you. Your body is curled on smooth stone, still warm from the hot rocks that hissed under ladles of herbal water just an hour ago. The air is thick with the scent of crushed leaves, chaya mint cacao husk, and your ears still ring from the chants that echoed off the walls before you drifted into unconsciousness. Because here, sleep begins with heat. The Maya believed purification came first. Before you could speak to the gods, before your dreams could be trusted, before you could lie down and drift, your body had to let go of toxins of thoughts of the cold. So into the temazcal you went where generations before you had sweated, sung, and seen visions. Last night, before entering the lodge, you were rubbed with clay, not symbolic clay, literal gritty clay infused with flower petals and charcoal. You sat naked beside elders who muttered in a mix of low Maya and ritual language, and you breathed in clouds of holy steam until the world grew soft around the edges. Then you lay back and dreamed like a stone. Historians still argue how widely these sweat sleep rituals were practiced. Some temples show signs of residential steam houses, while others suggest it was mostly for elites, warriors, or those preparing for sacred tasks. But the fusion of sweat sleep and spirit travel is well documented and deeply respected. Your dream. You were walking on the back of a serpent made of rivers. A child handed you a cacao pod, and when you cracked it open, lightning spilled out. Then you floated through the ceiling and woke up to your own gasp. You sit up now, disoriented but calm. The elder beside you nods. "Good," he asks in a whisper. You nod back. "See, good." You're guided outside, wrapped in a cotton blanket, still damp from mist. The night air hits your face like a cool truth. Stars shimmer above, and a faint drumbeat pulses from somewhere distant. You lie down on a grass mat under the stars. A cup of atole is pressed into your hand, warm corn drink laced with vanilla and honey. You sip slowly, grounding yourself. The dream lingers, then sleep returns. Not just sleep, Maya sleep. You lie facing the east, where the sun will rise, and listen to the silence between crickets. A breeze runs fingers across your forehead. The stars spin in slow arcs. Quirky detail. Some Maya believed the soul could leave the body entirely during sleep and travel through the spirit world. If you died while dreaming, they said your soul simply got lost and couldn't find the way back, which is why certain nights called for dream guardians, either family members who stayed awake nearby or special glyphs drawn in ash at the foot of your mat to guide your return. You drew one last night, a spiral with jaguar paws. It's still there, slightly smudged but intact. You trust it, the way you trust gravity or fire. Your second dream arrives like a fog rolling over hills. You're inside a temple now, but it's upside down. The priests walk on the ceiling. A parrot made of gold speaks your name, again and again. You sleep in pieces. The Maya didn't fear that. Segmented sleep was natural, especially after steam trance. Between dreams, you wake for a moment, drink water, infused with herbs, and lie back down like a stone, returning to the earth. You breathe, you drift, and somewhere in the distance, lightning chuckles inside a cacao pod. You wake with the scent of cedar in your nose and the whisper of silk against your skin. The desert is still outside your tent, windless silent, but inside everything feels perfumed, curated, softly glowing. You're in ancient Persia, and your sleep is political. Last night wasn't just a bedtime routine. It was a ritual involving incense poetry and something called scented consensus, a polite, fragrant way of expressing one's opinion without saying a word. It's complicated. So is your bedding. You sit up slowly, letting the folds of embroidered fabric slip down your shoulders. The pillow beneath your head is stuffed with herbs, rose petals, mint, and something sharp like saffron. Its fragrance was chosen to match your emotional balance. The priest-physician who visited earlier in the evening smelled your wrists and prescribed a blend to settle your mood before dreaming. Because dreams matter here, especially in Persian court life, where rulers, priests, and advisors sought divine insight, not from shouting oracles, but from sleep itself. Dreaming was not just a private act, it was a diplomatic tool. Even disputes among nobles were sometimes addressed via dream arbitration, where two parties would perform parallel sleep rituals and compare visions in the morning. If both dreamt of birds, compromise. If one saw fire and the other saw chains, probably time to call the high priest. You participated in something similar last night. Before dusk, you sat in a perfumed pavilion with other members of your household. Each person held a square of cloth soaked in a specific blend, cedar and lime for agreement, sandalwood and clove for disagreement. A court scribe called out proposals. People raised their scented cloths. No shouting, no debates, just smells. Then you returned to your private chamber, technically a tent, but one lined with golden thread and soft cushions, and began the process of sleep preparation. First the bath, warm with floating rosebuds and a dash of musk oil. Then a reading from the Zendavesta, the sacred text focused on balanced light and truth. You murmured a few lines aloud, not for performance, but because the sound of your own voice, even soft, helps guide your soul gently into the dream world. Finally, the dream prompt. Yes, a prompt. Like homework for your unconscious. You wrote a question on a small tablet and placed it under your pillow. What path shall I take next was yours. Simple, open. You didn't expect a direct answer. You just hoped the dream would nudge. Historians still debate the formal role of dream inquiry in Persian society, whether it was common or elite, whether it influenced politics or stayed symbolic, but poetry, medicine, and ritual often intertwined. Persian dream manuals contained specific advice. Don't sleep angry. Don't eat onions before bed. Don't sleep under a full moon if you're carrying a secret. You followed all three, mostly, and then you slept. The dream was vivid. You stood in a field of mirrors, each reflecting a different version of yourself, one laughing, one crying, one with a falcon perched on your shoulder. The wind smelled like honey and dust. A woman in white walked through you like mist and whispered, "Choose the path that leaves a shadow." You woke just before dawn. You've told no one yet. You don't need to, not immediately. Dreams unfold slowly here like tea in warm water, quirky tidbit. In some parts of Persia, there were dream listeners, women who wandered marketplaces, offering to hear your dream and respond with a poem. You'd whisper your vision, and they'd hand you a couplet spun on the spot, sometimes cryptic, sometimes oddly accurate, sort of like a fortune cookie but covered in jasmine. You stretch now, stepping into the first pale light of morning. The desert is quiet. The tents flutter. Someone nearby plays a reed flute. You press your fingers to your temple, remembering the dream, and the scent of last night's pillow rises again, subtle but insistent. You'll write it down later. For now, you simply breathe, and the question beneath your pillow lingers. You wake up nose to nose with a complete stranger. Your bodies are pressed together under a single rough wool blanket. Someone's elbow is wedged against your ribs. Someone else's toes are casually exploring your shin like it's unfamiliar terrain. And it's all perfectly normal because you're in a medieval European tavern and personal space hasn't been invented yet. The fire in the hearth has burned down to coals, but its heat still clings to the air. You blink groggily, take a quick inventory of your limbs, still attached, and try not to think about how many people have snored sweat and coughed in this same communal bed before you. This is bed sharing medieval style, where sleeping alone is a luxury, and a lonely one at that. In most medieval towns, unless you were wealthy, you didn't have a private bed. Heck, you were lucky to have a bed at all. You might sleep on a bench on a pile of hay, or if you were traveling, wedged into a sleeping slot in the corner of a busy public room, crammed shoulder to shoulder with snoring merchants, drooling farmers, and that one guy who keeps whispering about turnips in his sleep. And no, it wasn't considered strange. Quite the opposite. Sharing warmth was sharing survival. The stone walls leak cold, like they're personally offended by your body heat, and firewood is expensive. So you tuck in next to strangers' coworkers, family members, or whoever else is nearby, because freezing alone is far worse than snoring together. Historians still argue how common co-sleeping was among different classes and how much of it was out of necessity versus culture. But records show even monarchs occasionally shared beds with favored courtiers, or family not just for warmth, but for trust, loyalty, and maybe a little gossip before the second sleep. Ah yes, segmented sleep. You see, in the medieval mindset, sleep wasn't one long 8-hour marathon. It came in 2 acts: first sleep, followed by a brief waking period around midnight, then second sleep until dawn. And that break in the middle, it was built in, normal, expected. You'd wake naturally sometime after the fire dimmed and the church bells were silent. Some folks prayed, others chatted. Some even went outside to check on animals, or romantically had midnight trysts in the hayloft. You mostly just stare at the ceiling beams, trying not to think about lice. Speaking of which, yes, bugs were a problem. So were rats. Which is why some people hung bed curtains, burned dried herbs like lavender or rosemary, and tied little cloth pouches of pungent mint or rue to their bedposts to deter pests. You do all 3 but still flinch when something scurries across your foot. Quirky tidbit: in some areas, people believed sleeping with your mouth open invited the devil to slip inside. To prevent this, children were taught to sleep with a bit of cloth over their lips, or for the especially devout to fall asleep reciting a psalm, so their soul would be too busy praying to let demons in. You tried that last night, got through 3 verses before someone sneezed directly onto your ankle. You settle now into second sleep, the quieter stretch when even the loudest bedmates have finally stopped muttering. Outside, the streets are silent. No hooves, no shouting, just the occasional howl of a hungry dog. You dream briefly that you are floating above a field of thatched roofs, and the moon dips low to whisper, "Wash your feet more often." You nod solemnly. Then you drift deeper, and when you wake again, this time for good, the room is gray with early light. Someone is already stoking the hearth, and the smell of bread baking a few doors down carries through the shuttered windows like a lullaby played in reverse. You nod politely at your still sleeping bedmate, who now has your elbow, and crawl out into the day, because in the Middle Ages, you don't need solitude to sleep well. You need proximity piety and the patience to share a blanket with 3 people and a chicken. You wake to the sound of bells, deep, low-measured, echoing through thick stone walls. You don't jump. You've heard them your whole life. They're not alarm clocks. They're summons, and they're not for you alone. Everyone is rising now, quietly, reverently, with practiced slowness, because you're in a medieval monastery, and sleep here follows a higher order. Last night's slumber wasn't something you drifted into after binge reading a psalter. It was scheduled, deliberately. Like everything else in monastic life, sleep comes only when and as much as the rule allows. And in your case, that meant 3 hours, maybe 4 if the abbot was feeling merciful. You sit up on your straw-stuffed mattress, tucked neatly into the alcove of your shared dormitory. The ceiling arches high above, lost in shadow. Dozens of identical beds line the chamber, each monk a quiet outline, already preparing for vigils, the midnight office of prayer. This isn't a place for dreams. It's a place for discipline. Monastic schedules, especially under the rule of Saint Benedict, followed a rigid structure. Sleep wasn't ignored, but it wasn't indulgent. It was considered a necessary pause between services, scripture, and self-denial. Monks slept in shifts an early block before vigils, and then again after prayers, in a segmented pattern of wakefulness and return. Historians debate whether this segmented sleep led to deeper rest or simply persistent fatigue disguised as holiness. But one thing's clear: sleep was woven into the day, like thread in a robe, measured intentional and never frivolous. You dress in silence, wool robes, whispering as you tie the belt. Someone near you coughs. Someone else mutters a verse in Latin. You catch the rhythm and repeat it under your breath. In nocte concilium. In night comes counsel. Before bed last night, you washed in a stone basin, hands trembling in cold water. Then without words, you made your way to the chapel to kneel beneath flickering candles. The chant still echoes in your bones. Not loud, not passionate, just a low drone rising and falling like breath. Then you returned to your cell, extinguished your lamp, and lay on your side as prescribed. Flat on your back was frowned upon. Too indulgent, too close to death. You fell asleep thinking of the Psalms, or at least trying to. Quirky detail. Some monasteries enforced a rule where you weren't allowed to sleep with your hands under the blanket, lest your unconscious self be tempted toward ungodly acts. This led to elaborate tuck-in rituals, and occasionally monks sewing mittens to their robes. Chastity starts with chilly fingers. You slept lightly. You always do here. Dreams are rare, or rather, they're rarely spoken of. But sometimes, in the cold between the bells, you glimpse strange visions, beasts with scrolls for skin ladders, into clouds, angels holding books that breathe. You write none of it down. You're not here to interpret dreams. You're here to master them or transcend them. Now, standing in the dark, you make your way back to the chapel. No talking, just the shuffle of sandals over stone. You kneel, you chant, you pray. And hours later, after sunrise, you're granted your second sleep, short spare, and sufficient. You lie back down, blanket rough over your chest, breath steady. You feel your soul settle like a leaf in water. You whisper the final words before slipping under, "May I sleep with purpose and wake with grace." And you do. You wake with your heart racing, drenched in sweat, unsure if you screamed or if someone else did. For a long moment, the shadows in the room feel too deep, as if they haven't finished forming. The fires burned low, the coals glow like watching eyes, and your mouth tastes like iron. You're in early modern Europe, and the witch trials are in full swing. You lie perfectly still, not out of fear for your soul, but fear for your reputation, because here in this time, even the wrong dream can get you accused. And someone last week was dragged away after mumbling about flying in their sleep. So you say nothing, not even to yourself. Your room is small, drafty, and haunted by superstition. Dried herbs hang from the ceiling beams, mugwort, vervain, rosemary. Protection according to the midwife who gave them to you. A charm rests under your pillow, a bundle of red string salt and crushed lavender sewn into cloth. It's meant to ward off night hags, because night hags are real here, or at least everyone believes they are. Historians still debate whether sleep paralysis was always interpreted as demonic visitation, or if it was sometimes seen as divine punishment. But in this world, if you wake up paralyzed eyes, wide chest, crushed by unseen weight, there's only one conclusion: a witch has come to sit on you. So you do what everyone else does. You mutter a psalm before sleep. You sleep on your side. You sprinkle ashes across your windowsill, so if a spirit enters, it'll leave footprints. You even turned your shoes around at the foot of the bed last night, just in case the devil gets confused. None of it worked. Your dream was wild. You were flying, not metaphorically, actually flying. Through the rafters, across a black field. There were others there, laughing masked, and a cat with too many eyes offered you a goblet of something thick and red. You said no. You think, but now you must pretend you dreamt of bread. You dress in silence and walk downstairs to the kitchen. The old woman is already there tending the fire. She looks at you sideways and says nothing. She's been accused twice. She knows how to read a face. You smile too quickly. She notes it. You kneel by the hearth and touch the iron poker cold metal grounding. You feel the realness of it, the weight, the simplicity. Sleep shouldn't be dangerous, you think, but here it is. You're not alone in this fear. There are whole pamphlets in circulation warning people about dreams sent by witches. Manuals on how to detect whether your visions come from God or the devil. Spoiler: if you felt good during the dream, devil. If you woke crying, probably still devil, but let's ask a priest. Quirky tidbit: people were sometimes tried, not for what they did, but for what they were rumored to have dreamed. One poor girl was condemned after a neighbor swore they heard her muttering Latin in her sleep. She was 11. It didn't save her, so you learn to lie. At breakfast, you speak lightly of wheat fields, of losing a boot, of feeding a chicken that turned into a bishop. You get a few chuckles, no suspicion. You breathe easier. Later, you find a quiet moment to scratch your real dream into the dirt with a stick, then smear it away. Not because you're ashamed, because it felt powerful. And power here is fatal. At nightfall, you return to your room. You hang fresh rosemary, place your charm again, face east, say your prayer. And just before you drift off, you whisper not to angels or devils, but to sleep itself. Come quietly tonight. Bring no masks, no flying, no eyes. Only rest, only rest. Then you close your eyes and hope no one hears you sigh. You wake to the sound of water, not rain, not river, but water made to fall on purpose. It trickles, burbles, whispers through carved stone channels, designed for nothing else but making sleep sweeter. Welcome to the Ottoman Empire, where sleep is shaped by sound. You're lying on a thick mattress, low to the floor, surrounded by soft pillows embroidered in silver thread. A breeze filters through a lattice window, carrying in the scent of jasmine and lemon soap. Somewhere nearby, a servant is adjusting the flow of the indoor fountain, ensuring that the stream neither rushes nor drips, but maintains a soft, steady hush, like a lullaby made of water. Yes, this is real. The Ottomans, especially during their golden centuries, mastered the art of ambient sleeping. Wealthy households often had custom fountains built in bedrooms or adjacent courtyards, not for bathing, not for drinking, but to lull the mind and soothe the soul. The sound was carefully designed, not too loud, not too silent, just enough to blur thoughts into dreams. Historians still debate how common this practice was among different classes, but court records, poetry, and architecture alike point to a culture that deeply valued serenity, subtlety, and sensory pleasure in rest, especially for those who could afford it. You yawn and stretch beneath a quilt that feels like it's filled with clouds and permission. You don't have to be anywhere fast. Morning prayers happened hours ago. This is the second sleep, the golden one, the one that begins after the calls to prayer drift into memory and the household quiets again. Last night, you followed the usual sleep ritual, a warm bath in the hammam skin, scrubbed until it blushed, then oiled with rose and olive. You emerged glowing muscles, melted spirit clean. The hammam wasn't just hygiene, it was preparation, a softening of self. Then before bed, a light meal, grapes, almonds, bread soaked in milk, no heavy meat, no sharp spices. The aim was digestion without dreams. The Ottomans believed food influenced visions. Want a peaceful night? Eat light and sweet. You remember the feel of the mattress as you lay down thick layers of cotton and down folded and arranged anew each evening. A servant fanned the room briefly to cool the walls, then lit a tiny ceramic lamp and placed it behind a screen. It cast no shadows, just warmth. The only sound was water. Quirky tidbit: some palaces had sleep musicians, individuals who specialized in playing soft, repetitive melodies during bedtime hours. Flutes, oud, even voice if quiet enough. Their job wasn't entertainment, it was dream tuning. The right notes could guide a troubled sleeper toward better visions. The wrong notes, you might dream of fire or wolves. You had no musician last night, but the fountain played your lullaby. And in your dream, you were floating through a marble corridor that never ended. Walls melted into fountains. A bird with silver feathers flew beside you and whispered verses from Rumi, but you could only remember one line. Sleep is the shore between presence and absence. Tread lightly. You woke slowly with a smile you didn't mean to wear. Outside, a gardener is sweeping flower petals into patterns. The world is already organized. Inside, your room still hums. You pour yourself a glass of mint water from the copper carafe near your bed and watch condensation bead down its side. Cold, beautiful, quiet. This isn't just sleep, it's curated stillness. A life shaped to allow rest, and rest shaped to allow beauty. Tonight it will happen again. You'll bathe, you'll listen, you'll lie down while the water speaks, and your dreams will float. Because in the autumn night, even silence has architecture. You wake to applause. No, really. Someone claps gently, politely from behind velvet drapes. A low murmur follows like the end of a performance. And in a way, it is. Because last night you staged your own sleep. You're in Renaissance Italy in a noble household where dreams are half sleep, half spectacle. The bed beneath you is colossal, carved from dark walnut and swaddled in damask linens. Silk hangings fall from an overhead canopy designed to block drafts, soften light, and let's be honest, create drama. Everything here is art, including sleep. You sit up slowly. There's a perfumed handkerchief still tucked in your sleeve from last night's decessa, a ceremonial unwinding of the day. This isn't just a bedtime routine. This is bedtime theater. Historians often focus on the music sculpture and feasting of the Renaissance, but behind the grandeur was a deep appreciation for mood and sensory control. And nowhere did that manifest more eccentrically than in the ritual of sleep, especially for the upper classes who viewed nightly rest as an opportunity to display taste, virtue, and excellent drapery. Last night before bed, you were part of a scene. A servant arrived with a small lute and sang a gentle canzona about a knight who fell asleep in a garden and dreamed of virtue personified. You accepted a warm wine infused with rosemary and cloves meant to sweeten the humors. Someone recited a few stanzas from Petrarch, not too long, just enough to elevate the mood. Then the procession. Your chambermaid entered with a silver tray. On it, your dream talismans, a rose-scented sachet, a gold-embossed prayer card, and a tiny glass orb filled with dried violets said to protect against nightmares and bed-wrinkling demons. You climbed into bed like you were stepping onto a stage, slippers off, candle dimmed, curtains drawn, and then silence. But not just any silence, curated silence. Heavy velvet layered rugs, even tapestries on the walls ensured that the world outside wouldn't pierce the cocoon. Renaissance bedrooms were designed to muffle reality and amplify intimacy. Sleep wasn't an escape, it was a descent into elegance. Quirky detail. Some Italian nobles kept dream diaries written by servants, not the sleepers themselves. In the morning, you'd describe your visions over breakfast, and a scribe would record them in delicate script. These journals were often bound in leather and decorated with the dreamer's family crest. Private, yes, but also heirlooms. Your dream last night. You remember the sensation more than the scene, a long corridor filled with paintings that changed as you passed. One canvas bled into another. A woman with a crown of candles nodded at you. A dog spoke your name and asked if you forgave your father. You woke with a start and found yourself still alone in the performance space of your bed. You lie back now, taking a moment to admire the painted ceiling, cherubs and clouds, and tiny gold stars that catch the morning light. Someone outside your door coughs discreetly. The Renaissance equivalent of breakfast is served. You rise, robe yourself in embroidered silk, and step into the antechamber where your valet hands you warm lemon water. The first words of your day. How did you sleep? Not just polite, essential, because in this world, your dreams are part of your public image. Tonight, the ritual will repeat. You'll choose different poetry, perhaps a softer melody. You may even request a dream mask scented with ambergris. Because in Renaissance Italy, sleep isn't just rest, it's art direction. And darling, you always close the curtain on cue. You wake sitting up, or rather, you never fully lay down. Your coat is still on. Your boots are still laced. The map you fell asleep reading is creased against your cheek, and the ink from your last scribbled command smudged slightly where your breath hit the page. You are Napoleon Bonaparte, or at least you're dreaming like him. Because here in the early 1800s, sleep is war, and no one wages it, quite like the little general himself. Napoleon didn't view sleep as restoration. He saw it as a tactical concession. Every minute spent unconscious was a minute not spent conquering something. So he learned to sleep in snatches, 5 to 10 minutes at a time, often in full uniform, with dispatches still clutched in his hand. You shift now, still half wrapped in your military cloak. Somewhere outside, hooves clatter on cobblestones. A messenger knocks once, then retreats knowing better than to wake you too directly. You glance at your pocket watch. You've slept 17 minutes? Perfect. According to Napoleon, and later to legions of power-hungry imitators, a series of short, well-timed micronaps was not only efficient, but elite. Long sleep was for peasants and poets. A great mind, he claimed, needed only 4 hours a night, sometimes 2, sometimes less. Historians still argue whether this was bravado or biology. Some suggest Napoleon may have had a genetic quirk or simply trained himself through sheer will. Others point to letters he wrote at all hours, filled with oddly emotional phrases that hint at chronic exhaustion. Either way, he managed empires on fumes and made it look fashionable. You rise now, walking briskly to the campaign table where you'd collapsed just moments ago. It's still cluttered with maps, models, and half-finished orders. You sip tepid coffee. It tastes like desperation. You love it. Last night's sleep was divided into 5 intervals. 1 nap after dinner, 30 minutes. 1 nap just before midnight, 15 minutes. Another around 2 a.m. interrupted by cannon fire. A fourth, 20 minutes to just before dawn. The final briefest doze right now, and yet you feel functional. Not refreshed exactly, just calibrated. Quirky tidbit, Napoleon wasn't alone in this polyphasic sleep madness. Da Vinci reportedly followed a similar schedule, 20-minute naps every 4 hours. Others mimicked the pattern, seeking genius by sheer exhaustion. But none wielded sleep quite like Napoleon. He once fell asleep during the middle of a battle briefing, snored for 3 minutes, then woke up and finished the sentence. No one questioned it. His brain didn't sleep. It marched. Your dream, a blur of drums, smoke, and a cathedral made of swords. You were alone in it, as always, because in this life, even dreams are tactical. Even unconsciousness must submit. Now you check the window. The sky is pale gray. Another campaign begins soon. You'll nap again in a coach, possibly mid-conversation. You'll dream of strategy, of rivers to cross, and nations to bend and wake with a decision already made. There's no bedtime here, No softness, only the glorious thud of boots on frozen ground. You take one final sip of cold coffee, adjust your collar, and whisper to no one, "Sleep is for the weak." Then privately, you think 10 more minutes would have been nice. You don't wake because of movement. You wake because someone is whispering, slowly, deliberately, and a little too close to your ear. Your eyelids are heavy. You are relaxed. You will sleep deeply. You are already asleep. And strangely, you kind of are. Welcome to Victorian England, where hypnosis and sleep have become unlikely bedfellows, and the line between science magic and a good night's rest is blurrier than your vision right now. You're lying on a chaise lounge in a darkened drawing room. Heavy curtains block out the gaslight glow from the street outside. The air smells faintly of lavender water and candle wax. Across from you, a very earnest man in a velvet coat is repeating phrases with the rhythm of a church bell and the intensity of someone who believes very strongly in his own mustache. This is not a therapy session. This is bedtime, because in this era, tucked between the rise of industrial stress and the arrival of modern psychology, people begin turning to something called mesmerism to help them sleep, or as your host insists on calling it, magnetic somnambulism. You roll slightly onto your side. The cushions sigh beneath you. Your mind drifts, but your ears are still listening. Every third word lands like a lullaby made of velvet, drowsy, restful, floating. It's working. Historians still argue whether Victorian hypnosis was more stagecraft than solution, but there's no doubt it infiltrated everyday life, especially for the restless. While insomnia was once brushed off as divine punishment or a guilty conscience, the 19th century gave it a diagnosis. And with that came an entire ritual of induced rest. You were advised to avoid meat at night. Avoid novels too. They were said to stir unladylike emotions. Drink warm milk, not tea. And if all else failed, seek out a trusted mesmerist to gently whisper you into unconsciousness. You glance across the room. A metronome ticks slowly, not for timekeeping, but for entrainment. Its rhythm is meant to sync with your breath, then guide it downward into delta waves into slumber. You feel yourself drifting again. Your host murmurs something about the water's edge and a boat rocking gently, and suddenly your dream picks up where his words end. You're on a small lake, stars overhead, rowing with no urgency. Your hands don't move, but the boat glides. You sleep, but you hear yourself sleeping. Quirky detail. Some Victorians took to recording their dreams and delivering them to local hypnotists for interpretation. Not psychoanalysis, not yet. That comes later. But people believed that under hypnosis, you could retrieve truer dreams, clearer ones that revealed your subconscious desires, or simply the location of your missing handkerchief. You wake briefly as your mesmerist extinguishes the final candle. He places a warm stone at the foot of your couch, just enough heat to ground you. He whispers, "The world is safe," then exits like a shadow. You shift, and the ticking metronome becomes your heartbeat. You fall back asleep before you know you were awake. Later in the morning, you'll write down your dreams and decide which were yours and which were planted by suggestion. Either way, you'll feel rested, and in this world, that is the only outcome that matters. Because in Victorian sleep culture, science and ritual medicine and mystery all dance together in candlelight. whispering, "You are safe. You are still. You are already asleep." You wake, but you're not sure if you're truly awake. Your eyes are open, but the room around you feels half drawn. The walls pulse faintly. The air hums, even though it's silent. Your body is lying still, but your mind is standing up, looking around. You are in Tibet, deep in the Himalayan mountains, and this is not ordinary sleep. This is dream yoga, a practice so refined, so intentional, it makes lucid dreaming look like a nap after lunch. Here in a stone monastery clinging to a cliffside, monks spend their nights navigating their own dreams on purpose, not just watching them, controlling them, entering them as you would a sacred temple with full awareness and reverence. And last night, you tried to do the same. You lie on a thin mat in a bare cell, a butter lamp flickering at your feet. You remember your teacher's instructions. Lie on your right side, hands gently clasped, eyes half closed, not fully shut. Breathe slowly, then visualize a white syllable at the throat. Concentrate. Repeat the phrase. This is a dream. I will remain aware. It sounds simple. It's not. You fell asleep repeating the phrase silently. Breath syncing with mantra, mantra syncing with heartbeat. At some point, it slipped from words into images. But your mind stayed, or at least it tried. You dreamed of a staircase made of clouds. Each step disappeared as you touched it. A monk at the top laughed and said, "Now walk with no feet." You laughed too, and floated up. That's when you knew you were dreaming. You turned, slowly looked down, and saw your sleeping body beneath you, peaceful, still, and yet so distant. Historians agree that Tibetan dream yoga, part of the 6 yogas of Naropa, is one of the most advanced sleep rituals ever developed. It's not about rest, it's about transformation. Sleep becomes a classroom, dreams a tool. The goal, to understand the illusion of reality by mastering the illusion of dreams. Quirky detail. Advanced practitioners are said to develop the ability to choose their dreams, not just guide them, but craft them. Want to speak with a teacher, long gone, visit a sacred temple that no longer exists, practice compassion by embracing a demon. You can, if you're ready. You're not quite there yet. But the attempt alone changes something. You rise now before the sun. The air is thin crisp, filled with incense and snow. You splash your face with glacier cold water and bow toward the mountain. Your teacher joins you silently. He hands you a cup of yak butter tea, thick, salty, comforting. Neither of you speaks. Then softly he asks, "What did the dream teach you?" You hesitate, then reply, "I am more awake when I sleep." He nods, "And that's enough. Tonight you'll try again. You'll lie on your side, recite the mantra, watch the syllable float, and maybe you'll walk into the dream not as a passenger, but as a pilgrim. You wake beneath a web, not a real one, no spiders here thankfully, but a carefully woven ring of sinew and sticks strung with feathers, beads, and tiny bits of bone. It hangs above your head like a guardian, swaying gently in the dawn breeze. Sunlight touches the center hole. You're in a Great Plains encampment among the Anishinaabe people, and what watched over you last night wasn't just a decoration. It was a dream catcher, and it had a job to do. You sit up slowly in your deerskin bedding, your body still humming with the fading memory of sleep. Outside the lodge, the world is quiet. Smoke curls lazily from the cooking fire. A dog barks once far off. A child laughs. But here beneath the dream catcher, there's stillness. Last night, you went to bed the old way with purpose. Before lying down, you touched the dream catcher, not with fingers, but with breath. You exhaled through the center hoop, offering your dreams to the web, asking it to sift them as you slept. Good dreams passed through the center hole, down the feathers, and into your mind. Bad dreams, caught in the web, burned away by morning light. You believe this? Not out of superstition, but out of rhythm. This tradition is older than the camp itself, older than the stories you learned sitting by firelight. It is woven memory passed from grandmother to child, from voice to hand to sky. Historians still debate the exact origin of dream catchers. Some trace them to the Ojibwe Anishinaabe. Others note their spread through trade and storytelling to neighboring tribes. But everyone agrees on their purpose to filter the unseen. And last night, you felt it work. You remember dreaming of buffalo hundreds running silently through mist. A hawk flew beside you, then transformed into your grandfather, who simply nodded once and vanished. You felt no fear, only speed, only wind. You whisper this dream aloud now as you rise and splash your face with water. In this culture, dreams are communal knowledge. You share them not to impress, but to connect to your ancestors, to the earth, to your place in the pattern. A relative joins you. She asks, "Did your dreams run fast or slow?" You smile and say fast. She nods. Then today will be clear, quirky detail. Some elders say dream catchers are most powerful when hung over a cradle. Babies are the most vulnerable, open to every spirit, every gust of wind, every whisper from the other side. So a carefully made web above their heads becomes a net of protection, and the feathers, chosen not just for beauty, but for how softly they move. A dream, they say, should arrive like a bird landing. You look up now and see the sunlight catching in the web's threads. It's done its work. And tonight you'll offer it another set of dreams, perhaps lighter, perhaps stranger. You'll lie down once more, trusting the web to sort through the chaos. Because in this place, sleep isn't a break from life. It's another thread in the great weaving. And the dream catcher, it's listening. You wake in velvet. Not metaphorically, literally. The sheets beneath your hands are woven from dyed silk and trimmed in golden thread. The air smells faintly of violets, lemon peel, and expensive secrets. You're not just in a bedroom, you're in Versailles, and your sleep has been fashioned as deliberately as your powdered wig. Here in the court of Louis XIV, everything is appearance, even unconsciousness. Sleeping is not a private act. It's not a retreat. It's a performance, a ritual of class and control. And you lucky courtier have a front row seat to the show, and sometimes a role in it. Because sleep in Versailles doesn't just happen, it is witnessed. You remember last night clearly, how could you not? It began with the coucher du roi, the royal going to bed ceremony. A staged affair attended by dukes, ministers, and sometimes foreign dignitaries, all crowding into the king's bedchamber to watch him be put to sleep. Someone handed him a candle. Someone fluffed the pillows. Someone else murmured a prayer. You watched it all from behind a brocade screen, sipping watered wine and pretending not to yawn. And when the king slept, then finally you could too. But not before ensuring your sleeping costume was suitable. Yes, costume. You dressed for sleep here. Elaborate robes, lace collars, monogrammed slippers, even a touch of rouge should you be caught napping attractively in a chaise. Your bedchamber, if you had one to yourself, was designed to be seen wall hangings of pastoral scenes, carved cherubs on the bed frame, and if you were very lucky, a chamber pot that didn't squeak when lifted. You lie back now, letting the canopy curtain fall gently closed. Above you, a painted ceiling depicts the goddess of night, guiding a chariot of stars. Subtle? Absolutely not. But Versailles doesn't do subtle. Your bedding smells faintly of orange blossom water. You remember applying a bit to your wrists before bed, not for yourself, for the gossiping servants who might notice if you smelled plain. Because in this world, even your scent while sleeping can affect your reputation. Historians still debate how deeply theatrical sleep routines affected the mental well-being of the nobility. Was it restful or merely stressful in a different costume? But records show that nobles were often described in terms of how they slept. He dreams with his mouth open was an insult. She reclines like a statue was the goal. Quirky tidbit. Some courtiers terrified of being seen with rumpled hair in the morning actually slept, sitting up using a stiff triangular headrest and tightly arranged curls to maintain their appearance. Fashion never sleeps, but it does sit very, very upright. Your dream last night. You were walking through a hall of mirrors, not the famous one, but a dream version. Your reflection didn't match you. It blinked out of sync. It raised a hand you didn't lift. And then it whispered, "Be careful who watches while you rest." You woke heart racing, half expecting applause from behind the curtain. Instead, only silence, and the rustle of someone down the hall adjusting their bustle for breakfast. You rise now, slowly draping your robe over your shoulders like a performer preparing for Act 2. A servant enters silently with a basin of warm rose water. You nod regally, as if the idea of dreaming about rebellious mirrors hadn't unnerved you at all. Tonight the performance will repeat. You'll undress with an audience. You'll lie down like a sculpture. And if you dream again, you'll do it under watchful eyes and ceilings painted with stars. Because in Versailles, even dreams are choreographed. You wake mid-step, which is odd considering you're standing still. The marble hallway stretches endlessly in both directions, lit by flickering torchlight and polished so perfectly that your reflection trails alongside you. You're in a palace. You're also wearing only a nightgown and one slipper, and you have absolutely no memory of getting here. Congratulations, you're sleepwalking in Versailles. You blink once slowly. A guard at the far end of the corridor coughs politely, but doesn't approach. You recognize him, he's seen this before. You're not the first noble to take a moonlit stroll unconscious. Because here in the Palace of Mirrors, powdered wigs and weaponized etiquette somnambulism isn't just accepted, it's part of the mythology. You retrace your steps, softly, carefully. You don't want to wake yourself. Historians still debate whether the high frequency of sleepwalking reported in the 17th and 18th centuries was due to real sleep disorders or the strange psychological pressures of court life, constant observation, performative living, and deeply suppressed desire. But whatever the cause, the halls of Versailles were filled with tales of nobles found dozing upright in armchairs, whispering state secrets in their sleep, or gliding barefoot through salons like ghosts in brocade. You shuffle past a golden-framed portrait of Louis XIII. Even in oils, he seems to disapprove. You curtsy anyway, then pause. Did you just do that in your sleep? You can't tell anymore. Last night, you prepared for bed as usual, a light meal of fruit, a slow reading of a devotional, and a scented bath infused with verbena and regret. You drank a calming tonic laced with poppy extract, just a few drops, just enough to silence the thoughts that clawed at the edge of your mind all day, whether the queen noticed your missing ribbon, whether your cousin was spreading rumors again, whether the king's gaze lingered too long or not long enough. And then you slept, or you thought you did. But now you're standing in the royal library, staring at an open book you didn't remember opening. It's written in Latin, upside down. You close it gently and back away, careful not to disturb the silence. Quirky tidbit. Some aristocrats reportedly trained themselves to sleepwalk on purpose to retrieve forbidden letters, sneak into private wings, or visit lovers without crossing the social wires of conscious intent. One duchess famously claimed, "The feet of a dreamer cannot be blamed." You reach your chamber again finally. The fire has burned low. Your bed looks different now, larger, deeper. Or maybe your eyes just haven't fully returned. You slip under the covers as if you never left. Maybe you didn't. Because in this place, sleep is a performance. Dreams are masked balls. And if you wander the halls at night mumbling poetry to ghosts, no one will stop you. They might even listen. You close your eyes, uncertain if you're asleep yet or still inside the echo of yourself. And as the night folds around you, one last thought whispers, "What if I'm not sleepwalking now, but only awake when I dream?" You wake to the faint sound of whispering, but there's no one in the room. You're lying on a low wooden platform wrapped in a thick wool blanket, embroidered with geometric patterns. A faint draft creeps in through the log walls, and somewhere beyond, wolves howl low distant, but close enough to remind you that you are not in the city. You're in old Russia, deep in the countryside, and you've just slept beneath a knife. Not metaphorically, an actual knife, slipped carefully beneath your pillow before you fell asleep. Because in this world, sleep isn't just vulnerable, it's a battleground. And knives are not just for protection from people, but from things you can't see. Before bed last night, the babushka told you, keep iron near your head, and the spirits will keep their distance. You nodded not because you believe in sleep spirits exactly, but because her tone made belief feel optional. She also sprinkled a circle of salt around the hearth, lit a dried bundle of herbs, mugwort mostly, and placed a single silver coin beneath the bed. So they don't mistake you for poor, she explained. Sleep here is part superstition, part survival, part folklore, woven into routine. You don't just go to bed, you fortify. Historians note that in rural Russian villages, sleep customs were deeply entangled with folk magic. Stories of dreams being stolen, spirits riding chests, or witches invading mines were not fringe tales, they were shared like weather reports. Did you hear Ivan dreamt of owls last night? We'll get snow before noon. And so people adapted. Knives under pillows, iron keys in fists, a sprig of juniper in the window, beds placed diagonally across the room to confuse the dead. You glance now at the rafters above your head. Someone carved symbols into the beams, protective runes. You don't know their meaning, but you trace one gently with your finger anyway. Last night, you fell asleep to the sound of an old lullaby sung in minor key, Bayou Bayushki Bayou. Don't lie too close to the edge, or the gray wolf will come and pull you by the sleeve. Comforting right quirky details, some families had designated dream tellers, usually the oldest woman who interpreted morning visions. Not in grand mystical terms, but in practical village wisdom. Dreamed of fish, someone's pregnant. Dreamed of teeth falling out, expect grief. Dreamed of flying, best not to tell anyone. You might be accused of consorting with forest spirits. And what did you dream? You remember a fire that didn't burn and a forest that blinked. A man with a crow's head handed you a cup of snow. When you drank it, you saw your own body sleeping in the bed from above. You haven't told anyone, not yet. The babushka is waiting near the stove, stirring kasha in a copper pot. She won't ask directly. She'll just say, sleep well, and you'll nod. Then she'll hum a few bars of the lullaby and glance at the knife as she packs it away. Because tonight, you'll use it again. You'll place it under your pillow blade facing out and whisper the protective phrase 3 times. Not because you're scared, but because it's what people do. Because here in this cold, wild place, even dreams must be defended. You wake with a slow sway in your bones, not from movement, but from the memory of it. Your sleep wasn't still. It rocked, rolled, and whispered to the rhythm of the sea. And though you now lie in a hut woven of palm fronds and driftwood, your dreams are still out there somewhere riding the waves. You're in a Pacific Island village, surrounded by moonlit water and salt, slick air, and last night's sleep was guided by the ocean itself. Here among Polynesian navigators, sleep isn't just rest, it's navigation. A subtle drift between worlds. A time when ancestors speak islands, reveal themselves, and knowledge floats just beneath the surface of dreams. You sit up on a mat woven from pandanus leaves. The smell of the sea is in everything: your skin, your blanket, your breath. Outside, the tide slaps rhythmically against a canoe hull. The stars are just beginning to fade, but you know their paths by heart, because before sleep you studied them. You joined your family in lying on your backs, eyes skyward, tracing the arcs of Venus and Sirius and the Southern Cross. One elder murmured the night's mataka, the star rising that would guide tomorrow's journey. Another elder hummed an old song part, chant part map that told the story of how the winds changed when your great-grandfather dreamed of turtles. Yes, turtles. Dreams here are not passive. They are informational. You're expected to remember them, to share them, because they might be visions, or warnings, or directions, quirky detail. In many island cultures, navigators trained to sleep on waka voyaging canoes, swaying gently with the sea. Over time, their bodies tuned to the rhythms of the waves, so completely that they could sense changes in current in their sleep. One tale tells of a sleeping navigator who woke suddenly and said, "The reef has moved." He was right. Your dream. You were inside a conch shell floating beneath the waves. A school of silver fish swam in a spiral around you, forming a map, then scattered when a voice whispered, "Sail before the third moon." You'll tell that dream to the village elder later. She'll nod, then perhaps adjust tomorrow's route. Just a little, because here dreams are weather reports, spirit visits, and inherited stories all in one. You rise dust off your legs and stretch toward the light. The village stirs slowly. Someone is already preparing taro. Children whisper near the canoe, drawing shapes in the sand. And tonight you'll sleep again to the rhythm of waves, not in fear of them, with them. You'll lie on your back, feel the tide pull beneath your mat, and trust that the sea, the stars, and your ancestors will steer your dreams toward clarity. Because in the Pacific, sleep is a voyage, and every dream a current. You wake to the sound of singing, soft, rhythmic, ancient, carried on wind and memory. It's not meant for you, not exactly. It's meant for the land, but you are part of the land now, and so the song includes you too. You are in Australia, nestled beside a fire in the heart of the desert, and the melody you hear is part of the dreaming, the vast living ancestral map that shapes the world of the Aboriginal peoples. Last night you fell asleep under the open sky. No walls, no roof, just stars that seemed too numerous to count, and a ground that still radiated heat from the sun. Your bed was a bundle of woven grass and animal skins. Your pillow was the earth itself, and your lullaby a songline, a sacred tune that charts geography, ancestry, and belonging all at once. As it was sung, you felt yourself sinking, not just into sleep, but into something older, something sacred, because here sleep is not a pause. It is part of the journey. Aboriginal belief systems hold that the dreaming is not confined to the past. It is a continual unfolding of spiritual creation, accessible through ceremony story, and yes, dreams. When you sleep, you do not simply rest. You enter a different level of knowing one that connects you to the land, to your kin, and to the ancestral beings who once walked the paths you now walk. You sit up slowly, rubbing dust from your eyes. The sun is just beginning to stretch its limbs across the landscape. The fire has died to embers. Around you, the desert is painted in silence and soft light. Your dream last night was vivid. You were walking through a dry creek bed when a giant serpent emerged from the sand, not to threaten, but to lead. It sang not in words, but in vibration, and you followed it through stone sky and shadow until it left you at a waterhole full of stars. You haven't forgotten the feeling. You're not meant to. Later, you'll share your dream with an elder who may nod and tell you which ancestor spoke, or they may say nothing, just to add a new verse to the song that led you here. Quirky detail among many Aboriginal groups, children's dreams are not dismissed, but treated as guidance. A child who dreams of a particular animal may be seen as linked to that totem for life. Certain dreams are even used to name a newborn or to determine the direction of travel in nomadic life. Historians marvel at how interconnected these traditions are. Geography, cosmology, ecology, and psychology all bound into nightly rest. This is not dream interpretation. This is dream participation. You stand now and brush red dust from your legs. Someone nearby begins singing again, this time a verse you recognize. It charts a river you haven't yet seen, but someday will. Because songlines are not just memory, they are roots, and dreams are one way to walk them. Tonight you will sleep again beneath the stars. No incense, no lock on the door, no separation between body and earth. You will close your eyes and follow the song wherever it leads. Because in the dreaming, you don't find dreams. Dreams find you. You wake in sand, not a beach, not a patch of desert visited for novelty. This is home. You are a nomad born into the shifting terrain of North Africa or the Middle East, where the stars are your ceiling, the dunes your walls, and sleep is dictated by wind and silence. There is no clock here, no schedule to chase, but your body knows when to rest because the day's heat has broken, the camels have stilled, and the fire has long since burned down to orange glowing coals. Your mat lies flat upon the earth, and your blanket carries the scent of goat hair and sun. You open your eyes, and above you the sky is still wide open and waiting. Last night you prepared for sleep, not with words, but with rhythm. Your family moved in near perfect coordination, securing the tent flaps, stacking packs, herding the animals, smoothing the sand beneath your bedding. You ate something simple, flatbread dates, a bit of milk, then drank strong tea, thick and sweet, poured from high above as if height could add flavor. Then, as always, someone began to hum, because here song is not separate from sleep. A grandmother's voice, your uncle's low chant, even the tapping of fingers on a water skin, it's all part of the descent. There is no formal ritual, just rhythm. You remember lying on your side, listening to the wind slip between tent seams, watching your sister braid her hair by firelight. You remember thinking, this is enough, and then you dreamed. A storm, loud and violet, blew sand into stars, and you were carried on the back of a hawk through a canyon of sleeping camels. You spoke with a jackal who gave you a riddle you've already forgotten, but the feeling, it lingers. Here, dreams are not decoded. They're respected. Elders may offer you a saying, a nod, or sometimes a story in return. You dreamed of hawks. Then the path ahead is high and sharp. You dreamed of jackals. Be careful with laughter, it may bite. Historians often romanticize nomadic life, but they overlook its subtle sleep culture, how tents are arranged to face the wind, how the youngest sleeps closest to the fire, how shoes are placed in a half circle at the entrance, not just for order, but to confuse wandering spirits. Quirky detail. Some nomadic groups believe the soul can drift far during sleep, pulled toward unseen places. To keep it from straying too far, a string or piece of wool might be tied loosely around the wrist or ankle, not tight, just enough to remind the soul where it belongs. You look at your wrist now, no string, but your heart still feels anchored. You rise quietly. The desert does not like sudden movements. You pack your mat. You stretch your arms toward the pale horizon, and for a moment you feel lighter than the air, as if a part of your dream is still riding the hawk, still catching the wind. Tonight it will return. You'll sleep again beside fire and silence, and when the sand cools and the tea is gone and the wind dies down, you'll lie back not to escape the day, but to continue it in another form. Because in the desert, dreams don't interrupt life, they extend it. You wake to the gentle hiss of something mechanical, not a hiss of menace but of design. Air cycling, lights adjusting, a faint chime fading into silence. You are lying in a narrow pod, the walls curved around you like a shell. The temperature is perfect. The mattress contours to your body with scientific precision. Above your head, tiny LEDs glow soft blue, shifting gradually toward gold. You are in the future, or so it seems. But the strangest part, this sleep pod, its contours, its cooling stone surface, its controlled airflow feels eerily familiar, as if it had already existed long ago. Welcome to a concept that's less science fiction and more ancient intuition that the human body, given the right conditions, can sleep better than we let it. Because while this sleek capsule Looks like something from a space station. Everything about it mirrors the sleep practices of the ancients. The darkness, the cool air, the ritual of quiet. You close your eyes again, and the pod responds, dimming lights, adjusting its incline, gently humming white noise, tuned to your own breathing patterns. But this isn't some techno-utopia yet to come. This is a reflection of the past. Across ancient cultures, there's evidence that sleep technology, as we'd now call it, was always evolving. Egyptians cooled their sleeping chambers with water-soaked linens. Persians designed domed ceilings to circulate air silently. Chinese pillows were carved from jade, not just for symbolism, but to dissipate heat. You lie there marveling that what feels so cutting edge might simply be ancient wisdom wrapped in wires. Last night, you programmed your pod to encourage certain kinds of sleep, deeper dream-rich calm. But your body knows this trick. It's been lured to sleep by water sounds, moonlight, and warmth since it learned how to rest. The dream you had, a strange one. You stood at the center of a circle of people, some in robes, others in space suits, one in a feathered headdress, and they all spoke the same phrase at once. We never stopped dreaming, only redesigned it. You woke slowly, peacefully, certain you'd learned something, unsure what. Quirky detail. Some archaeologists believe that Neolithic people intentionally shaped cave spaces for dream incubation. Chambers deep underground where no noise, no light, no time could disturb the mind. Sound familiar? Your pod might be made of polymers and algorithms, but at its core, it's a cave. A silent womb-like echo of how humans have always wanted to sleep, safely, completely unbothered. You stretch. The pod responds, adjusting its shape. You don't rush to get up. This isn't an alarm clock moment. It's a transition. The machine plays a soft recording of wind and leaves. Real synthetic, it doesn't matter. It works. You exit slowly. The room is dim, no harsh light, no noise, and you think we didn't invent sleep pods. We remembered them. We are always returning to the past, polishing it with chrome, and calling it innovation. Because even in the future, we dream like the ancients, just with better temperature control. You wake without knowing when you fell asleep. There was no ritual last night, no chanting, no feathers, no jade pillows or hypnotists, no fire crackling beside a reed mat, no grandmother singing lullabies that trace the sky. Just a breath, then another, and then you were somewhere else, and now you're here again. Welcome to the one truth that all those cultures, all those centuries, all those strange bedtime rituals have been circling around sleep is sacred. You sit up in a room that could be anywhere modern, plain, maybe a little too quiet. But your body is humming with the memory of what came before. You still feel the drumbeat from the Viking longhouse, the cedar smoke of the Persian tent, the salt circle in the Russian cottage, the mirrored eyes of the hawk flying through your Pacific dream. Everywhere we've been, sleep has been more than rest. It's been protection, performance, navigation, survival, and offering. It has never been just about closing your eyes. It's always been about stepping into something larger than yourself and trusting you'll return in the morning. You rise now, not out of habit, but reverence. You stretch not because you're stiff, but because your soul feels like it's just returned from a long walk. You pad softly across the floor, remembering how the Aboriginal child was told to share his dream before breakfast, how the monk woke to bells, How the nomad tied a string around his wrist. We all have our string, our little tether to the waking world, and each night we loosen it, just enough. Quirky detail. Many historians agree that for all our technology and schedules and electric midnight scrolling, modern humans may have the poorest sleep in recorded history. Not because we don't want it, but because we've forgotten how to approach it. We no longer ask sleep to guide us. We beg it to catch us. But tonight, maybe you'll remember something older. You'll dim the lights not for mood, but for stars. You'll lie down not to crash, but to descend. You'll breathe not to quiet your thoughts, but to greet the darkness. You'll drift not as escape, but as return, because now you carry every sleep ritual with you. The jade and the jasmine, the lullabies and the water walls, the whispered prayers and the watchful knives. You are a museum of sleep, and as you close your eyes tonight, you don't just rest, you arrive. So now, as your body settles into the softness beneath it, let your breath begin to stretch, slowly, gently, like a hand smoothing cloth. There's nowhere else to be, not anymore. Let the images from our journey flicker and fade. Let the Neanderthal fire quiet, the Egyptian incense drift away, the jade pillow melt into memory. They were real, and they were enough. Feel the curve of your spine sinking just slightly deeper into the bed. Notice how the air moves a little slower, now how your shoulders begin to let go, not all at once, but in waves. The night does not demand anything of you, it simply waits. So give yourself permission to drift, not because the world is solved, not because the day was perfect, but because you are human, and this is what humans were made to do: to sleep, to dream, to wander across deserts and temples and oceans in the quiet theater of the mind. And when the morning comes, you won't remember every detail. You don't need to. What matters is that you let yourself go. So rest now. No performance, no protection, only peace, only stillness, only sleep.